Good afternoon, and thanks for joining us for today's Healthline 3. I'm Courtney Butts, and today we're talking all about the eyes. And joining us today is Dr. Christopher Shelby, ophthalmologist with Willis-Knighton Eye Institute. Thanks for joining us.
It's good to be here.
Yes, I figured, I have my glasses on today. It's a good conversation piece.
Yeah, very appropriate.
Yes, and so we're going to talk about ways to, as you guys talk about a lot, glasses independence.
Glasses independence. That's
okay,
right.
And that just basically means getting you out of the glasses,
Sure,
right?
Of course. Most people generally should be able to see well at a distance and read up close without glasses. But a lot of folks are nearsighted or farsighted or have astigmatism that requires them to wear glasses like you are, or contact lenses in order to see well enough to do activities of daily living.
Right.
One of my daughter's friends, we just did LASIK on her. She was over to the house last night, and they were asking her about it. And what are the coolest things about it? And one of the things she said was just being in the shower. And you don't realize when you can see well.
Right.
You don't realize when somebody's really, really nearsighted, you're in the shower, you're not going to wear your contacts or glasses. Just being able to see, the shampoo bottle, this and that. I mean, it's amazing.
Yeah, things that you probably didn't even realize you were missing out on, Yeah,
exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
So, okay, cool. So you're also, you and Dr. Coleman, kind of a tag team, partnership as well, but you guys are known as the cataract surgeons, right?
Cataract surgeons, that's correct.
And so that's something that you can't really prevent, right? It's kind of something you get as you age.
Yeah, cataracts are just a normal part of aging, and luckily there's no cure for them, or else we'd be out of a job, So what a cataract is a subtle browning or color change of your God-given lens. And when we're born, we all are born with lenses. They're crystal clear, like a glass of water, and the consistency of Jell-O. So you can see well at a distance, intermediate. When you read up close, your eyes come together, that lens thickens, giving some magnification. So over time, it's like taking that clear glass of water and you slowly pour Coca-Cola in there. And listen, this is something that happens slowly over decades, not overnight. And so, you first lose that near vision, then things become a little bit blurry. You lose the fine detail, colors become washed out. Nighttime, there's a lot of glare with oncoming headlights. And when it gets to a point, no matter what we do with glasses or contact lenses, we can't get patients seeing better, then it's time to consider having that cataract removed.
Right. Okay. Yeah. And I mentioned to you right before that, if you remember, for those watching, during the Oscars, Goldie Hawn was presenting with Andrew Garfield, and she mentioned to him, I can't read the teleprompter. And she confided and said, I have cataracts. She's 79 years old, so prime age, I'm sure, that you typically see, maybe a little older than what you typically see.
Yeah, I don't know what they're doing out there in California, because, if you're 79, you've got cataracts, and the fact that she hadn't had it done before then is actually quite surprising.
Right. Yeah. And so she mentioned, I can't see, I can't read the teleprompter. So, I'm reading off of a teleprompter right now, and she couldn't read to announce the winner of the featured or whatever the prize was. And she mentioned that she had cataracts. And so is blindness one of those things that you could be worried about?
Sure. Matter of fact, globally, cataracts are the leading cause of preventable blindness. And so in most third world countries, it's not glaucoma, it's not macular degeneration, it's cataracts that cause blindness, which is one of the reasons that what we do is pretty cool, because we can go on mission trips, do a 10, 15-minute surgery, and these people's lives are changed forever.
Right.
And so as opposed to giving some blood pressure medications that temporarily, treat the issue, we can make a huge difference.
Yeah, and it's hopefully Goldie Hawn is bringing some awareness to cataracts as well, and it's probably pretty alarming, because she was saying, I'm blind, I can't read this, so hopefully it's bringing some awareness to, go ahead and schedule that surgery, because that's really the only way to really fix it, right?
That is the only way to fix it.
Yeah.
And obviously when they begin to develop, we tell patients all the time, hey, you got some early cataracts, not a huge deal. We just like people to know these are the symptoms, so don't be surprised, don't think you're going blind. We get glasses, an update. But when it finally gets to the point, no matter what you do, like I said, with glasses or contact lenses, you can't see any better. You're not doing the things you enjoy doing because you can't see it as well. It's time to have cataract surgery. And like we tell patients all the time, we have the best job ever, because everybody's anxious coming in for that first eye. That's completely normal. Because like my dad used to say, it's all minor surgery unless it's on him, then it's all major surgery. You don't know what to expect, but then they realize, okay, It's not painful. It doesn't hurt. They don't remember much, and they can see better almost immediately. So when they come in for the second eye, they're very excited because they know the results are going to be amazing. And what's pretty funny is the time frame in between the first and the second eye, those patients are comparing, and they're like, God, I didn't realize how bright my TV was, or how white the walls were, or how much dust is in the house, because now they can see all those details, the colors and the brightness that they couldn't see before because of the cataracts.
Yeah, okay. And so with each patient that you work with, are there different lenses that people can look at as far as when you're going in for the surgery? Do they have the option to choose, or is that something that you kind of decide as the physician?
Well, it all depends. So let's assume your eyeball is completely normal, okay? There's no glaucoma, there's no macular degeneration, your cornea is healthy. The only thing you've got going on are cataracts. Well, the good news is you have a lot of lens choices. The bad news is you got a lot of lens choices. And what it boils down to is how you want to see when it's all said and done. So the standard lens that we use during cataract surgery, which is completely covered by Medicare and insurance, is optically perfect. And what we try to do there is maximize distance vision as good as possible without glasses. So with a completely normal eye that doesn't have a lot of astigmatism, those patients see very well at a distance. They simply have to wear readers for small print. If somebody has astigmatism, they're still going to see a whole lot better after cataract surgery. They just may have to use glasses to sharpen the distance in the near vision because of the astigmatism. Now, we have lenses that correct astigmatism, which are great because those patients see very well without glasses, once again for distance. They just need them for up close. We have multifocal lenses and extended depth of focus lenses that allow distance, intermediate, and near vision without glasses.
Okay.
That's why it can be, if somebody researches it, it's like, my God, what do I do? What do I choose? Right? And so it all depends, and that happens when they come in for preoperative measurements. It's like, what do you like to do most of the time? Are you a big reader?
Yeah.
Are you a hunter? Do you really like to play golf? Because multifocal lenses are wonderful, but they have some drawbacks. And so maybe a toric lens or an extended depth of focus is best for the hunters or the golfers, whereas somebody who spends a lot of time reading or working up close, the multifocal is a wonderful option, or monovision, the light adjustable lens. There's a lot of options out there.
Yeah, and so that's just a conversation that you would have with your patients and what makes sense for them. So they could technically, choose maybe your regular lens and then maybe still choose to have readers, right? If they still need to see up close, because that's something. Would you say, okay, so nearsighted versus farsighted? So I'm nearsighted, I can't see far away, right? And then farsighted is when you can't see things up close. Do I have that correct, or is there a little?
More or less, it's where the focal point is.
Okay.
And farsighted patients, interestingly enough, nearsighted patients are some of the most difficult to make happy afterwards, because even with cataracts, people who are nearsighted can take their glasses off and they can still see details up close. And what's interesting is, as cataracts develop, your lens thickens. And when a lens thickens, it becomes stronger, which means you have more focus up close. The Greeks actually used to call it second sight because they could see at a distance. They lost their near vision. They developed cataracts, and suddenly they could see up close again. And of course, they went blind because there was no cataract surgery.
Right.
But in those situations, farsighted patients, on the other hand, as they begin to lose the focus, they lose that near focus first, then their intermediate, and then their distance becomes blurry.
Gotcha.
So without glasses or contacts, they don't see anything. Everything's blurry. And so they're actually great patients to do surgery on because you give them anything back and they love it.
Okay. Gotcha. That makes sense because typically, I could take my glasses off and I could still kind of make out things around me, but yeah, it could be pretty debilitating if you can't see anything. I'm very thankful that it's not that bad for me.
Right.
But yeah, glasses independence. There's also, what's the other term that you use? The refractive error. Yeah, tell me about that and what that means.
So refractive error, in a perfect world, when we put somebody at our phoropter, which is that little instrument we do, hey, what's better, 1 or 2? In a perfect world, you'd be plano, 0. Okay, so your eye's completely round, it focuses light perfectly. Refractive error means, okay, now there's some nearsightedness, or there's some astigmatism, or there's some farsightedness, and all these are measurable. That's what we write on your prescription. You're a little nearsighted, you have some astigmatism, and here's where it's located. That's your refractive error. Now, there's a big refractive error, like somebody who's a -10, with a lot of astigmatism, or a +4 with a lot of astigmatism. That's their refractive error. And that's intolerable. Now, there's ranges of refractive error that are tolerable, meaning that, so I'm a little nearsighted with a little bit of astigmatism. It's not bad. I drive without glasses. I can see. Of course, I'm not nearsighted enough anymore to be able to read very well up close, so I wear some readers. I don't put them on because I don't want people to say, hey, if surgery's so great, why do you still wear glasses? But like I said, it's a tolerable amount of refractive error. Okay. And you probably have that too, to where you can function without your glasses. It's just more comfortable wearing them.
Yeah, that's true. Right. I can remember when I was, in school, and I was squinting to see the board, and I would move closer and closer to see the board, and so that was when I was like, okay, I need to get some glasses because this is just annoying, so that makes sense. Okay. So if you're just joining us and you do have a question for Dr. Shelby, we're talking all about the eyes, maybe cataracts, or if you're trying to get out of glasses, they have many different options that we can talk about. The number to call is 318-219-4569. It's right there on your screen. If you do have a question, just give us a call. So, with maybe astigmatism, I have astigmatism, and tell me what does that do to your eyes? I know it kind of distorts the things that you see a little bit.
It's a good question, and it's actually something even ophthalmology residents takes us a while to really understand what it is. But when you look at optics, so the nearsightedness means your eye's a little bit too long. Okay, the front part of the eye, the cornea, focuses light a little bit too strong. So if you can imagine that beam of light that's coming in focuses somewhere in the middle of your eye, and so then it continues to where it's blurry on the retina. So when you look at a pinpoint of light, there's what we call a blur circle. So a pinpoint of light would look like a cotton ball. Okay, so you have this perfectly round haze. Farsightedness, it's similar. That cotton ball is a little fuzzy. With astigmatism, it actually causes light to focus in two different points. So what happens is people get a shadowed image. Like you're looking at something at a distance, you can see that image, but you get a shadow or a fuzz around it. And that happens not only at a distance, but also intermediate and up close. So it causes 2 points of light to hit the retina at the same time. So your cornea, instead of being perfectly round, like a basketball, is shaped more like a football. And the difference between the long and the short area is what we consider astigmatism.
Interesting. Okay. Well, Bonnie, thanks for joining us. And what is your question? You still there? Okay. Well, if you do want to call back, give us a call back at 318-219-4569, or if you're just joining us and you have a question for Dr. Shelby, give us a call. That number's right there on your screen. So yeah, astigmatism, and how does, I know that it kind of impacts the way that I see images, I guess, or things far away, and then as I get closer to them, I'm like, oh, I don't know what I thought it was, and then as I get closer to it, I see the image, what it is. So
it causes a loss of contrast sensitivity, which is fine detail. So that's why the further you look away, it's like, okay, I can see something. I just don't know what it is. And so contrast sensitivity is one of those. The best way to think about it is you have two Coke cans on the field goal, okay, and you're standing on the 50-yard line. And somebody who has really good contrast sensitivity can look and see that there's two objects. When you don't have good contrast sensitivity, you know there's something there. You just don't know if it's one or two until you get closer to it.
Gotcha. Okay. And I think, so I inherited, I would say, my dad's eyes. So what kind of role do you think that genetics play with, how our eyes develop?
Oh, there's a big role that genetics do play. And so if both parents especially are really nearsighted or have refractive error, then the odds are their kids will too.
Gotcha. Okay, well, Medford, thanks for joining us, and what's your question?
I went to the doctor and had both of my eyes cataracts taken off, and had a little blur spot on my left one, and they said it was normal. And then I got to where, I can't read like the telephone book or the newspaper, and I went back to the doctor, and he checked them, and he said, I know you need some reading glasses. He didn't even check my eyes. He just said, I can give you some reading glasses. So I went up there and they gave me a pair of reading glasses, and they're not strong enough for me to read. They didn't really help me. The writing is blurred, I can't focus in on it. And I believe I just need some stronger reading glasses to be able to read that fine print, But he just gave me a pair of glasses. I guess he gives them to everybody, the same glasses, without checking and saying, you need some stronger than this,
Yeah.
But anyway, I was wondering what I should do about. Do I need to just forget about him and go to Walmart and buy a pair, or what?
So you probably need a second opinion. When we have a patient that we do cataract surgery on that comes in that has a blur, we like to make sure that it's not caused by something anatomical, like a secondary cataract, or even something like macular degeneration or some swelling in the back of the eye. Because what we should do, and what we generally do in our clinic, is somebody who has had cataract surgery, you come in, and like I was mentioning earlier, we put you in the fluoropter. So we check your vision, and we check them individually, to see how well we can get your vision at a distance. And then once we've done that, we check them up close too, to make sure that the pair of glasses that you're wearing, the power is appropriate for what you need. Because after cataract surgery, when you put readers on, it should clear things up. When it's not clearing things up, you can go and try to get something at Walmart that's stronger, but if it's still blurry, we need to take a look at you.
Yeah. Well, yes, sir.
So,
that it's my left, it's only my left eye, and it's certain ways, that I look, if I close my right eye and look straight ahead, I'll have that little blur spot there, things are not clear. And then I may turn my head sideways or something and it'll clear.
Yeah. Is it blurry in the center?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
If you look straight ahead.
Yeah, we need to take a look. Have they told you there's anything going on with the back of your eye?
Well, not really.
Okay. Yeah, that's something that it needs to be checked out. You need a dilated exam and a few scans just to make sure there's no, like I said, swelling or any issues with your retina itself. Especially when you're talking about kind of moving your head around and you can see clear on the edge, but in the center it's still kind of blurry. Yeah, we just need to take a look.
Yes. Yes, sir.
So.
Okay, I'll come by and let you look at them.
Yeah, call 212-3937. That's 318-212-3937. Tell them you talked to me on KTBS, and we'll get you in really quickly, especially tell them what's going on.
Okay, thank you.
All right, you're very welcome.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. And if you are just joining us and you have a question, you can give us a call at 318-219-4569. So when we do have another caller, Christina,
okay,
thanks for joining us. What is your question?
Yeah. Yes, it's twofold actually. I am 61 and wondering because I haven't had an eye exam in quite some time, and is there a floor age amount or age time that I should have checked for cataracts? And if I do have them in the procedure, are you awake or are you asleep during cataract surgery?
So those are all great questions, and the best time to have an eye exam is right now. I mean, not today, but
okay.
You want to do it pretty soon. I mean, you're 61, you hadn't had an eye exam in a while, so I can tell you that you'll probably have some changes, some lenticular changes that we would consider a cataract. Not necessarily bad enough to come out, but we can easily see that. And we also check for other things like glaucoma, macular degeneration, stuff that can happen, as we get older. So this year is a great time to get your eyes checked. Now, let's say you do have cataracts, and we were like, hey, you know what? Doing cataract surgery, you would see a lot better, and you schedule that. We don't put you to sleep for cataract surgery because it only takes about 10 minutes. Doesn't take long at all. But we do sedate you. So an IV is started to give you some relaxing medicine, and most patients don't remember anything at all. And one of the reasons we do that, we call it conscious sedation, is because sometimes we need to talk to you and we need to get you to look up, look down, look left, look right, or look at some of the red dots that we have so we can measure the eye at the time of surgery. You just don't care. But the nice thing about cataract surgery is it is completely painless. Even if you weren't sedated at all, you wouldn't feel a thing other than a lot of water.
Okay. That's what I needed to find out. I'll be calling and make an appointment.
Okay, great.
Great. Yeah, so
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
and you guys also do regular eye exams as well. And so you're talking about the things that you screen for, like glaucoma, macular degeneration. What are other things that you're looking for in just a regular eye exam?
So the main thing that we look for is glaucoma,
Okay.
of course, because all that is high pressure in the eye that damages the optic nerve. And so the problem there is that it's painless, and patients who have advanced glaucoma don't know it until suddenly their vision is blurry. But we look for things like dry eye, refractive errors, anything that can be going on with the macula itself, cataracts, things like that. The nice thing about the eyes is you can see blood vessels inside the eye without having to cut somebody open. So somebody who's got diabetes, we can check to make sure their diabetes is well controlled.
Okay, yeah, very easy, and that way you can get started on treatment if you do find something. So
Sure can. Matter of fact, you would think that people with diabetes would know they have it, but I mean, we routinely see patients where they'll have a little bleeding in the back of the eye, or they have this sudden dramatic change in their vision, and it's because their blood sugar has been elevated for quite a while. Because that's another thing. Diabetes is generally not painless. You don't know you have it until you get your blood sugar checked, or there's certain symptoms.
Yes, and our last caller, she mentioned she was 61, and so when should someone start to think about, okay, when's the opportune time to have that cataract surgery?
Like I said, that it's when it begins to cause symptoms bad enough to where you're noticing them daily. And they're driving you crazy. I stopped driving at nighttime because the glare is too bad, or I'm having to really increase the light to be able to see the small, fine details, or this TV that I bought sucks, it doesn't work well, they sold me something bad, and it's not those things, it's the fact that you can't see very well. And here's the thing is, your eyes should never hurt, you should never be aware of them, and your vision shouldn't be blurry and outside of normal, is what I mean. So if you wake up one day and suddenly your eyes are sore, they're achy, they hurt, there's something going on. Not necessarily bad, but we need to take a look at it. And if there's sudden change in your vision, we also need to know that, because that means something is happening.
Okay.
And another thing is floaters. We get asked about that all the time. A new floater is not normal. So we need to take a look at it, because your eye is a contained system. Nothing in, nothing out, unless we put it in or take it out. So anybody who sees a brand new floater, we need to take a look. Once again, it may not be anything bad, but we don't know until we see it. And
floaters, how do those happen? How do they form?
The most common reason for a floater is what we call a posterior vitreous detachment. So as we get older, the eye is full of this jelly called vitreous, and it's in a bag, and that bag is attached all around the retina. Well, as we get older, it contracts, and then it separates from the back part of the eye. And it does that suddenly and dramatically. So patients are like, whoa, I suddenly see this brand new floater. And usually it's quite large and is generally associated with flickering and flashing lights. And that's because when that jelly begins to separate, it tugs on the retina a little bit, and so you see a spark or a flash of light. Most times that it tends to disintegrate and settle to where it goes away. With some patients, it just hangs out and it's right there. And so either way it happens, we need to take a look to make sure there's not a retinal tear or a retinal detachment, because that is a surgical emergency.
Okay, yeah, so that's kind of your ticking bomb of like, hey, we need to get this checked out immediately to see if there's anything else going on. Is there anything you can do for the floaters?
So it used to be there was nothing, because the definitive way to remove a floater is to do a vitrectomy, where our retina colleagues go in and actually remove all that vitreous jelly. Of course, that is not a benign procedure. It carries certain risks. So we do what's called a laser vitreolysis, where we have a special laser that we can use to break those floaters up. Actually works surprisingly well, and and the goal when we do a laser for a floater is to make it 80-90% better.
Okay.
So works pretty good.
Pretty cool. Well, Kenneth, thanks for joining us. What's your question?
Once you have cataract surgery, is it possible if maybe they come back or you still have problems later on, say 4 or 5 years after you have cataract surgery, with not being able to see as good again?
Those are great questions. So when we take the cataract out, of course, we're removing your God-given lens. So the cataract will never come back like we took it out. But what can happen is you can get what we call a secondary cataract, which is just a haziness of the bag that we put the lens in. And we call it a secondary cataract because the symptoms come back. You don't see as well, you get a little glare, things like that. It's kind of blurry. The good news there is we use a laser in the clinic to remove that. It takes 1 minute, completely painless. You see better by the time you leave the office. Now, other things that can happen is you can get dry eye, you can get some corneal issues that can cause a little bit of a blur. We can see an increase in astigmatism over time, then that can cause a little bit of a blur. That's kind of subtle. So those are the most common things that we see that can cause vision change after cataract surgery. And the good news is that like astigmatism, things like that, even after cataract surgery, we can do LASIK or PRK to reduce that and help to sharpen the vision. But it's one of those things when you've had cataract surgery and your vision's changing, it's a good idea to have us take a look.
Okay, so I need to make another appointment with y'all because y'all did my others, and for years I could see good. Like you said, as soon as I got one done, you could tell a big difference. But
Yeah.
Seems like now the further I look a long ways off, look like they're kind of blurry or at times. So that's what I was wondering. But
Yes.
I'll make another appointment with y'all's office and try to get back in and let y'all check my eyes because y'all done an amazing job last time. I didn't feel a thing.
Good. Yeah, and that's usually the case. But yeah, absolutely. Especially after 5, 6, 7 years, something like that. Not uncommon to see a little drift in vision. And it's generally nothing bad. And it's usually something we can tune up pretty painlessly. So yeah, just give us a call and let's take a look.
All right, thanks, Kenneth. We just have a couple minutes left, so if someone is interested and you do regular eye exams, maybe scheduling cataract surgery or LASIK, SMILE, y'all do a lot of different things at your new pristine surgery location
Yeah,
or
we do.
procedure
Over
location.
at the Willis Knight North at our eye surgery center. It's completely remodeled. It's wonderful. Patients have been loving it, and you can give us a call, 212-3937. 212-2020. We have locations at Willis Knight North, South, Piermont. So wherever you're located, we can get to you conveniently. And we do routine exams. If there's any problems, we can take a look and see. We have a new cornea specialist that has joined us, Kelly Coleman. She's wonderful. And so being able to offer all these services, it's really, really nice.
And you've had some extra surgery rooms added, right? So you're able to do more, would you say? And this new state-of-the-art, what is it, the new laser that you have?
We got the VisuMax 800, which I think we have the 6th one in the United States. Anyway, it's high tech. It's wonderful. We can make all the SMILE incisions within 10 seconds versus 30. We can make a flap in 5 seconds. It's wonderful. Yeah,
so you're able to, it improves patient outcomes too, and then
sure
also
does.
You're able to maybe help more people. So that's awesome. Well, thanks, Dr. Shelby, and you can find this on our website at ktbs.com if you missed it, ktbs.com/podcast. As always, a pleasure talking with you, Dr. Shelby.
You too, Courtney. Thank you.